Even though Korea regained its liberty from the illegitimate Japanese occupation, the end of the Second World War did not restore peace to the peninsula. Instead, political and social tumults were worsened by ideological conflicts. As the United States and the Soviet Union effectively divided the peninsula in half, it also led to the standoff between the liberal democratic camp in the south and the communist camp in the north. Seeking to maintain the nation's historical commitment to liberty and peace, South Koreans focused on reviving the society and economy that had been left devastated by the Japanese rule. North Koreans, influenced by communism from the Soviet Union and China, instead began to plot the reunification of the two Koreas through a Red Revolution, which was to have a catastrophic effect on all Korean people. The South, however, was completely kept in the dark regarding this plan of the North. North Koreans, in the meantime, began to prepare for attacking South Korea from multiple points, starting with small and localized aggressions and causing chaos and suspicion inside the South Korean society. The North Korean troops assigned to the boundary facing the south finally received order to initiate the invasion, with which they immediately complied, setting the 38th parallel on fire. South Korea was powerless to counter the sudden invasion by the North, which did not even accompany a proper declaration of war. Judging that its army was hopelessly outnumbered, South Koreans immediately called on the United States and the United Nations for emergency aid. As the defense line in Myeongdong collapsed, the North Koreans marched without interruption to the Han River. South Koreans had to demolish the pedestrian and steel bridges across the river in order to contain the North Koreans' advance, forming a defense line along the river again. As the South Koreans fought back along the river, the United Nations finally resolved to dispatch military troops into the war on its behalf. The countries of the free world volunteered troops, military assistance, and other forms of military aid in order to help secure a place for liberty and peace on the Korean peninsula. The United States was first to inject its naval and air force troops into the war, and shortly followed up this initial round of help by dispatching Task Force Smith for ground operations. These young men sacrificed their lives without hesitation for a foreign country only because of their conviction in the cause of liberty and peace. As Task Force Smith was crushed by the artillery and T-34 tanks of the North Korean Army in less than 6 months of entering the war, the new defense line along the Han River broke down. The members of the task force, however, performed an invaluable role in earning some time for the South Korean Army to reorganize itself and move to the central eastern part of South Korea to form a strong defense line. The 24th Armored Division of the U.S. Army, led by Major General Dean, fought relentlessly to secure and safeguard the city of Daejeon. They were still outnumbered by the North Koreans, however, and forced to retreat further southward as a result. In the meantime, the UN forces and military aid arrived at Busan, reinforcing the South Korean military capacity and gradually bringing it on a par with the North Korean Army, resulting in the deadliest battles along the Nakdong River. As the Incheon landing operation began successfully under General MacArthur's leadership, however, South Korea succeeded in reclaiming the coast of Incheon within 24 hours, following their first landing on the island of Wolmido. Boosted greatly in their morale, the South Korean troops annihilated the North Korean forces and marched on to Seoul. On September 20th, the South Korean forces that landed in Incheon kept pushing southward to the Han River, gradually isolating the North Korean Army. It did not take long until the North Korean Army completely broke down, and the South Korean Marines were finally able to hoist the national flag on the roof of the central government building in Seoul. This dramatic event turned the war completely around in favor of the South Korean and UN forces, allowing them eventually to recover all the areas south of the 38th parallel. The Korean War became a defining moment in history, on which South Korea realized how precarious and fragile liberty is. Records of this war also serve to remind South Koreans of their duty not to forget the countless young men from all around the world, as well as their own civilian soldiers and students who had valiantly sacrificed their lives. The Free Republic of Korea exists today because of their invaluable sacrifice and help. It is the duty of the survivors to keep telling and retelling what they have witnessed, so that no such tragic internecine warfare would befall this peninsula ever again.